Hi, I'm Joel Persinger. Thank you very much for joining me here at Practical Defense Systems. I'm going to talk a little bit about what people call doxing, or letting somebody know where someone lives so they can go protest in front of their house and pester them. We're seeing a lot of that right now. Here's a news article that talks about that happening at Justice Kavanaugh's home over the Roe versus Wade stuff. We've seen also that Justice Alito has had to be moved to a secure location because of their concern for his welfare over this whole thing. I'm not going to get into the whys and wherefores of whether this is appropriate or not. I'm of the opinion that it's not appropriate, but that's my personal opinion. The fact is it's illegal. Okay. In fact, if you're wondering whether it's illegal, let me share with you the statute. That's 18 U.S. Code 1507. Picketing and parading. It is not legal. It's actually illegal to try to influence a judge and the judge's decision in any way that you do it. But one of the things that's listed in federal law is it is illegal to try to picket or protest specifically in front of a judge's or justice's house for the purpose of trying to change their decision on a particular case. And there's the code for you so that you know that that is actually illegal. Now, the truth is, let me get a drink of my coffee here. As a security professional, you need to know this as well. Many cities, Los Angeles being among them, San Diego County, the city of San Diego, I'm pretty sure, and a number of the surrounding cities in the San Diego area have passed city ordinances making it illegal to do what's called target protest or target picketing in front of someone's house. Now, you can march through a neighborhood if you're just generically doing a protest through a neighborhood and you keep it peaceful. Pardon me, my phone's going off here. You can do that, but you can't target a specific individual and go to their house and harangue them and harass them and that kind of stuff. That's illegal in a lot of places. And where it isn't illegal in a state, some states I think it's illegal, then what's happening is local municipalities, cities, counties, and so on are making it illegal. And I think that's a reaction from a lot of the protesting that we saw in 2020 and some of which we saw in 2021. And then, of course, things like this where they're harassing Supreme Court justices, which is already illegal. Now, what you'll find is the fact that it's illegal sometimes matters, sometimes it doesn't. For example, I saw this news story this morning. I think this was on the Fox News website. It might have been on another one. But it says DOJ silent on abortion protests at justices' homes despite federal law prohibiting pickets to influence the case. Now, I just showed you the law, but the truth is, quite honestly, sometimes politicians don't enforce the law, and sometimes district attorneys don't enforce the law, and obviously sometimes the Department of Justice doesn't enforce the law if it doesn't fit their political narrative. So where does that leave us? If we are either a person who's well-known, a guy on YouTube or whatever, a blogger, a movie star. I don't put myself in the place of movie stars, but you get the point. Or a CEO of a company who makes a statement that people disagree with, whatever that may be, because really, no matter what your point of view is, you're going to have about half the people who like it and half the people who don't. There's going to always be a group of people who agree with you and a group of people who don't. And unfortunately, in our society, we've lost the ability to simply agree to disagree. And sometimes, now we're seeing quite often, groups get angry and they want to protest and they want to do this kind of stuff. And it can become, and oftentimes does become, violent. So the idea is to try to avoid it in the first place. Unfortunately, not only do these groups come and dox you, but the media is... Pardon me, it's early and I'm having my coffee here. The media is oftentimes complicit in this. I'm going to show you a media report that I saw the other day, and you'll see that not only does the protester, they interviewed some protesters, not only do the protesters feel like it's okay to keep you up at night and bother you if you disagree, but the media then announces at the end when the next protest is and what the location is. So sometimes they can be complicit. Then I'll start explaining how you can avoid this if you happen to be a pastor of a church or you're somebody who you feel they might come protesting in front of your home. So let's look at the video.
My choice!
Rain did not stop dozens of pro-choice protesters from taking to the quiet streets of Chevy Chase, Maryland, to make one thing clear.
You don't get to take away my bodily autonomy and enjoy your Saturday night at home. You can do one or the other.
First stop, Justice Brett Kavanaugh's home, where they were greeted by Montgomery County police officers. Then they headed over to Chief Justice John Roberts' residence with a similar message.
Hands off our bodies! Hands off our bodies! Hands off our bodies!
Lacey Wooten Hallway, who has had an abortion and is a sexual assault survivor, has been holding candlelight vigils in front of Justice Kavanaugh's home. But since the draft opinion indicating the Supreme Court is poised to overturn Roe v. Wade was leaked, the crowd keeps growing.
If you take away our choices, we will riot.
Organizers say that some residents have called their protests disrespectful because they're bringing politics into their neighborhood. But Emily, who lives in the community, says that the stakes are too high when the constitutional right to abortion is on the line.
Such a high stakes situation that if, it's a little bit noisy in the neighborhood, in comparison to what women in this country are facing, it's really not a big deal.
Protests will continue throughout the upcoming week. The next one is scheduled in front of Justice Alito's house. Now, in this Chevy Chase neighborhood, it will be Wednesday at 7 p.m. Rafael Sanchez Cruz, WUSA 9.
The other thing I probably should point out to you about this video is the fact that if you really think about these people who seem to be okay with showing up in front of someone's home and keeping them up at night, and the one lady that said, if you disagree with me, then you don't get to sleep at night, you don't get to go home and have your peace, you don't get to do anything. Well, she's wrong about that. What they're doing is illegal. Unfortunately, at least in some places, it's not being enforced. Now, in Virginia, it is being enforced because the new governor there is very conservative. He's not going to allow that. And in certain places it will be, but it's enforced on a political basis now, which it shouldn't be. The law should just be enforced. And I'm sure that there is some enforcement of it to a degree, and certainly the justices are protected by the Supreme Court police, so they do have protection. So I don't think anybody's going to get to them and cause them any harm, but it's very disturbing to have people out in front of your home protesting like that, and it's very disturbing that when the government knows it's illegal, they won't go do anything about it. But I think it's interesting if these people, they don't understand that if the shoe was on the other foot, if somebody was doing this in front of their home, they wouldn't like it very much. They'd be complaining and whining and carrying on. So it's interesting how we can feel like it's okay when we're doing it to somebody else, but we certainly wouldn't like it being done to us. All right, so how do we keep this from happening? If you're, like I said, if you're a pastor of a church, I used to do quite a bit of work for Skyline Church, and then also for Saddleback Church and some other churches like that as a consultant and as a trainer. And I can tell you some churches, not all, but some churches do talk about highly political things. They get very controversial about politics and that kind of stuff. Some churches simply do not bother with that. They focus on Christ. And I'm not saying one is better than the other. I'm just saying that some churches do that. And you may have a pastor, for example, or a minister who is a very politically charged person. Somebody wants to know where that person lives so that they can pester them. Well, you want to avoid that. Or you may be starting a YouTube channel, and maybe you're smarter than me and you're not using your real name. But at the same time, you're concerned that somebody's going to get that out there and you don't want them to find you, or whatever the case might be. There are some simple ways to reduce the risk of that. You're never going to make that go away entirely. If you think that they don't try to keep people from knowing where Supreme Court justices live, you're wrong. They do. But obviously, somebody got that information, and the next thing you know, they're publicizing it. And as I said, the press is oftentimes complicit in this kind of stuff. Remember that no matter what you do, if you go on the web today and you go on Spokeo, for example, or any of these people searches sites, and you type your name and the city in which you live, you'll probably find that you've got a whole lot, hundreds of listings of you with your address and your phone number and your age and all these other things available to anybody that wants it. And if that doesn't frighten you, nothing will. So let me just show you. There are a number of websites that will work with that. and help reduce that. One of which I just searched around. I found this one called Delete Me. Now, there's a Delete Me for business, and then there's a Delete Me for individuals. And if you want to look at the Delete Me for individuals, I think you look at joindeleteme.com. If you just go to deleteme.com, it's a different thing. And then there's another one called One Rep. Well, you can see the prices there. That's kind of convenient. See, I even showed you the prices. Now, I don't know when you're going to watch this video, so at the moment that I'm actually producing the video, those are real. So don't hold me to it if you look at the video a year from now or something and expect those prices to be the same. There was a time when none of these kinds of services existed, and you had to manually go through and try to remove yourself from all of these places and go through each one of them's opt-out process. It was a very time-consuming, laborious kind of thing. Now, if you're a very, very wealthy person, or you're a CFO of a big company, billion-dollar, multi-billion-dollar firm or something, then obviously you've got people that do this. And for senior executives of big companies, oftentimes they hire companies that will do this on a more proactive basis. These are kind of auto-remove type things I just showed you, and there are others. I just wanted to give you a couple of examples. Obviously, there are companies that do this where they've got staff who are working on the more difficult sites to get that stuff taken down, because some of them don't do it through an automated basis. You have to personally do it, or you have to have somebody personally do it. So people who are of high net worth, or they work for a big company or something, oftentimes they have services like that. And then if you're a government employee and you're a significant person in the government, like a Supreme Court justice, obviously you've got the Supreme Court police. I'd be surprised if they don't work tirelessly to make sure that this stuff doesn't get out. The problem is that now you have a neighbor who doesn't like you, doesn't agree with you, and they know where you live, and they know your address because they live right next door, down the street, or whatever, and they go online and they just post your stuff on social media and tell people to go protest at your house. And the next thing you know, the information's out there. So there's a bunch of different ways for the information to get out there that you really can't do much about, but certainly you can reduce the risk. And one way to do that is to subscribe to one of the services I just pointed out to you, or something like that, and then you enter all your information, and they will work tirelessly. They'll run a search every month or so. Generally, it's every month, and any listings they find on those kind of people search sites, they'll work to get those reduced. And actually, they work pretty well. They're not 100%, nothing is, but they work pretty well. And then obviously, you want to go on your social media and make sure you don't list your address or your age or anything like that that can be used to easily find you. So if you use a social media platform, whatever that may be, go back and look at your profile and clean that stuff off. And if you're protecting, like I said, a pastor or a person who owns a small business, or you've got some other client that you're working to protect, or maybe it's you, go back and scrub some of that stuff out of there. And that way it'll make it a little harder for people to find you and come chase you down at your home and drive you nuts. Now, the other thing you might do is check your city code or your county code and find out if it is legal for people to do targeted protests like that in front of someone's home. I think you're going to find that it probably isn't. And if it isn't, a lot of times these things, like the one in LA, and I think the ones in San Diego, you cannot do that, a targeted protest in somebody's house. You have to be 300 feet away. Well, unless I'm doing my math wrong, 300 feet is 100 yards. So that's down, if you're in a regular residential neighborhood, that's down the street quite a distance. They have to be away from your home. Otherwise, it's, as far as I can tell, it's generally a misdemeanor. So it's just a ticket. But the point is the police have some ability to clear out that group for you if you need them. Now, the other thing I want to point out to you is that Justice Alito, they moved Justice Alito to an undisclosed location. Sounds like a spy movie, doesn't it? They've got him in a safe house in an undisclosed location. Well, that's not probably what they did. He probably went to go stay with a family member or a friend. They might have him in a hotel somewhere. Here's the point. You want to make sure that whoever is concerned about this, as I said, whether it's a business owner, person you're protecting that's a public person, everybody knows who they are. They're on YouTube or TikTok or whatever, and they're pretty popular, or you got a pastor or somebody like that, particularly if they're political, if their subject matter they talk about is politically sensitive, or if people are very strong, have strong opinions on one side or the other. But even if they're just super popular, you get sometimes fans can be a little kooky, and they show up wanting to bang on these people's doors. That's not a good plan. I actually had somebody do that at my house. Okay, so just so that you know, that's not a positive thing to do. If you're ever considering doing that, don't do that. You'll liable to get shot, or arrested or something. But people do that kind of stuff. Somebody was telling me they were watching the Johnny Depp trial. I got enough drama in my life. I don't need to watch that. But that Johnny Depp was talking about when he started doing Pirates, he had to hire more security because he had people show up trying to climb the gate to get into his house to go see Captain Jack Sparrow. He said he had one guy show up dressed as Captain Jack Sparrow. Now, who does that? I don't know, but there are kooky people in the world. So if you're protecting somebody like that, you want to do everything you can to keep their address from getting out there, but recognize that it can and it probably will. If somebody's determined to get that location information, there's many, many ways they can do it. Search public records manually. They can do if they know the city that they live in, they can go search the public records manually, look for, any home that they own that happens to be in their name or something along those lines. They can do all kinds of stuff like that if they're determined. Well, then you want to have an alternate place for this person to be if this happens. You want to get them out of there. And so I would be very surprised, for example, if the justices are at home. People are picketing in front of their homes, but if they have an alternative location to be, I would imagine they're probably there. They're probably not even home where these people are protesting. And then, of course, as I said, they have the Supreme Court police who are probably protecting their properties anyway, and then local police are going to do that because they're Supreme Court justices. You and I don't have that unless we want to hire private security. So again, just some things to think about. If you happen to be that person, you want to make sure that just like this guy, you've got some place to go. And if you don't, you're not fortunate enough to have the kind of money to have 2 residences or be able to afford to go to a hotel or whatever. Hopefully you've got friends in other places and you can kind of arrange with a couple of them, hey, if this ever happens to me, can we come stay with you for a while? And maybe that's an out. But this is stuff as a security professional, if you're protecting somebody, you want to be aware of the fact that this stuff is needed so that when you're talking to your client, you're setting your client up for success. This is simple stuff. It's not hard to do, but it's really hard to do when you need it as opposed to before you need it. So this is super important to do before you need it. I mentioned these sorts of companies that will go on the web. There's the Delete Me and the OneRep version. Keep in mind that that's not an instantaneous thing. Let's say, for example, you do a search, you sign up, and they do a search, they come back and say, well, we found 475 profiles across 200 websites. You think you're going to be able, they're going to get you off of those like in the next 5 minutes? No, it's going to take months. It might take 3, 4, 5 months for them to get you off of all of those things. And then once you're off of all of those things, and they search every month, they might find 5 that popped up. They can go get those taken care of relatively quickly. But when you first start, there's a ton. So if you have a concern about this for a client or for yourself, you want to be on it now before people are wanting to protest at the client's house or your house, not later when you wish you had done it and now they're out in front of your house and you haven't got a second location planned. You don't have, all your information is all over the web for anybody who wants to go. And then some local news dude, like this guy that I showed you on the video, says, oh, and tonight's protest is at such and such a time at such and such a place. Be there. This is not a good picture for the person who's being protested. So something I thought maybe we should talk about. Thank you very much. Sorry about the long video. Have a great week and be safe out there.